Hello, and welcome back to the next episode of Quattro Sports Podcast. Back for another video, and it's been a while, been almost 3 months now. Things have been going on, so I think it's time to get back into the videos. We have many planned already, so we're going to get right into it. We're talking about the National Hockey League today, and a recap of the 2023 season. As you see, if I zoom out behind us, we have some of the standings on the board. So we'll get right into it, and we'll start off with the Metro Division. And we'll start with Eric's quick analysis of how the Carolina Hurricanes did this season.
Carolina had they did about how I was expecting them to this year. You know, they were carried by some strong playing. Of course, Sebastian Aho stepped up, being their leading goal scorer. But they were kind of hampered by injuries. Before, one of our most recent videos prior to this one involved us discussing the playoffs, and neither of us had Carolina making a run this year because of some injury concerns. But during the playoffs, we didn't have them make a run during the playoffs. But regardless, I mean, this is a team that we know who they are. We know what they're capable of. They're young. They're talented. They have the potential to make a deep run. So Carolina definitely is scary. Like I said, they did about what I was expecting them to do this past season, finishing first in the Metropolitan Division.
All right, thanks a lot, Eric, for that feedback. By the way, I didn't mention Eric's name in the beginning of the video, I don't think. Eric obviously is also associated with the channel, along with Joe, that we've mentioned in previous videos. So that's his feedback on Carolina. My feedback, just to make it quick, I thought they could have gone further. I thought they had potential to go to the Stanley Cup final, but it wasn't there because, injuries with Svechnikov, and, they already had Pacioretty out for the whole season prior to the earlier confliction. So I guess that kind of hurt them a little bit, but they were happy enough that they got past the Islanders and then were able to take down the Devils. But they came to a halt when they played the Panthers, and we'll get to them when we get to our Atlantic Division. But let's move on as we go to the Columbus Blue Jackets. What is there to say about Columbus? Anybody smell some trash? Oh, maybe that's just Columbus. Columbus Blue Jackets didn't have the best season, obviously missing the playoffs. And yes, they made the playoffs recently, not too long ago. They don't have some crazy 10-plus year drought like the Sabres. We'll get to them soon. The official dumpster fires of NESN Sports Network, as they say. But Columbus needs a lot of work. They need coaching change. They need, which I think they were looking forward to. And then they need a lot of addition to their depth and stuff. Their defense needs to get better for sure. They need to become more competitive again. Obviously, when they played the Tampa in years past in the playoffs, they were kind of, iffy. And Tampa's a well-built team that even to this day, since they got their back-to-back championships a few years ago, it's definitely a strong team. So what are your thoughts, Eric, on Columbus's performance this past season?
They flat out sucked. I mean, there's no sugarcoating it. They were bad. They were a miserable team, but that was expected. They kind of entered the season kind of expecting to be bad. So, I mean, they did sign Johnny Gaudreau prior to the season, and he did about what you expected. I mean, he led their team in points by a large margin. But at the same time, being the best player on a team like Columbus, I mean, good for him. He has the money. But Columbus could have been a lot better. They couldn't really have been much worse. They stunk. They really stunk. Best way to put it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like I said, a lot of work that needs to be done with the team, so we'll see what happens in the coming seasons. So now we move on to New Jersey. New Jersey, I'll go ahead and do New Jersey real quick. Not a lot to say other than the fact that this season was definitely one of the better ones they've had in the past few years. Making the playoffs, of course, was huge. And then, of course, not impressing as much as they could in the playoffs, but the fact that they could make it definitely gave the fan base a boost. They could definitely probably use some better goaltending. And maybe the coaching it's debatable, but they might bring back some better faces in free agency, and that will be in another video we'll get to soon. But overall, a spark with the playoff berth, which is good. Because it has been a few seasons, so kind of an upper bright side of the Blue Jackets is what the New Jersey Devils are. Their spark is there. They're seeing it after like a rebuild, and they're getting there. What about you, Eric?
Spot on. This team was about a year or two ahead of where I had them on my timeline. I mean, you got a young, talented core. Of course, you got guys like Jesper Bratt, Dawson Mercer, key role players. Nico Hischier took a huge step forward this past season. Jack Hughes took a giant step forward this past year, getting 99 points on the season. So clearly, this team is. I don't know how they're going to do in the upcoming future. I think that they might have overperformed this year, but we saw some big flaws when they got into the playoffs. When they played a team that had physicality, they were able to bully New Jersey. So New Jersey, they're good, but how good are they going to be right now? That's the real question. They did better than expected, though.
Yeah, they did for sure. But we can both agree. We saw them in the next year or two for sure making the playoffs.
Yes.
Based on how they've been growing and stuff. So that segues us into the New York teams, the Islanders and the Rangers. We'll do this together. So I'll have you start off, give your thoughts on the Islanders and Rangers, and then I'll provide mine on the pair of teams.
Both were, given their expectations, disappointing this year. I mean, both teams did make the playoffs. I'll start with the Islanders real quick. This is a veteran-driven team. You have a ton of old players. Anders Lee, Brock Nelson, Jean-Gabriel Pageau. It's older players, Kyle Palmieri, that you expect a lot more from this team. This is a team that's nitty-gritty, and they should be able to battle you no matter what. But, I mean, they did decently, barely making the playoffs is what the wild card won. So they're good, not great. New York Rangers on the flip side, this is a team that we really thought should have been making a deep run in the playoffs. We saw it last year where they made a run to the conference finals, I'm pretty sure. And they went out and they got big-name players like Tarasenko, Patrick Kane at the deadline. Neither player necessarily panned out. I mean, Tarasenko did decent. Kane didn't really do much. So this is a team, again, that is older. They really needed to have a run this year. I don't know if they have the assets to make a run this upcoming year. But both teams, yes, they made the playoffs, but they were both first-round exits. They were both disappointing in the playoffs. How do you feel they did?
Definitely a similar way. Both teams were expected to go far. Rangers, obviously, the last 2 or 3 seasons, they've been getting better in the playoffs. Everybody thought they could definitely make a run to the Eastern Conference Final. That did not happen, which, of course, is disappointing. The Isles, just as a similar disappointing first-round exit to the Hurricanes, which were also, in a first-round exitee, or what do you want to call it. The Hurricanes took out the Isles a few seasons ago as well. So it really shows that over the last 2 or 3 seasons, they've put money into their players, and they'll probably put money into growing up to the next season, but they have to really show that they can work. And like you said, a lot of veteran players that need to show up more. I mean, a couple seasons ago, they got rid of Tavares and stuff, so that means other people, like you said, Palmieri, Brock Nelson, like Matt Martin has stepped up there physically, but, with this physicality needs to be skill.
Yes.
So those are my thoughts. We're now going to go on to the Philadelphia Flyers. I'll provide my quick insight, and then the Flyers fan himself, Eric, will provide his thoughts. So for me, wasn't much there. I didn't expect a lot of them for sure, obviously, because they are in the rebuild mode. I'll let Eric get to the point of the front office decisions and stuff that they've recently made, but I think they're going into the right direction. Coming off this season, obviously not making the playoffs, I think there's hope that they could be, the next Devils coming into the next season or two and have a chance at making that playoff berth again and get back into it for sure. So now we'll go to Eric, his thoughts on this team.
Flyers sucked this past year. No, there's no sugarcoating it. This is a team that, I'm not going to go on a rant here, but this is a team that should have gone into a rebuild entering last season. They should have traded away their assets prior to the season, but they didn't. They decided to stand. They thought they could compete. This team was easily outperformed. Their goaltending was so inconsistent. Carter Hart, I think, just got disenfranchised. The defense was garbage at times. I mean, every defender was benched at some point, it seemed. Every player was benched. I mean, their lone all-star, was pushed down to the third line and scratched at times because he did not get along with John Tortorelli. So without further ado, without going into a huge rant here, the Flyers, I mean, outside of Travis Konechny and Kevin Hayes, Owen Tippett, disappointing season. Of course, and one of those three guys was just traded away for a 6th-round pick, so I don't know what really to say about him. I think the season was just doomed the minute Russia didn't allow Ivan Fedotov to leave to play for the Flyers. I think that should have been an omen. But Philadelphia, I mean, just disappointing season. I'm excited for the future, but that'll be another video.
All right, nice thoughts from Eric on his team, the Flyers. Now we go down to the last two. We have Pittsburgh and Washington. I'll do this in another double take. So Pittsburgh, it's obviously seeing that they're pretty much rebuilding now. I mean, they still have some stars on their team, but they're going to be making moves, I'm sure, in the offseason. Things are definitely splitting up, and there is a chance that next season they might not make the playoffs. So, I mean, they were a strong team still physically, but with Tristan Jarry and their goaltending, it has to change, and this will be addressed once again in the upcoming videos on the free agency decisions of if they made any moves or not with goaltending or players in general or even staff. So obviously things need to improve there. In terms of Washington's aspect, it's the same exact thing, to be honest. I mean, Ovi is getting closer and closer to breaking Gretzky's record. Obviously everybody wants to see that, but he can't do it by just himself. We all know this. Yes, he's one of the best goal scorers no matter what happens, if he breaks the record or not. But other players need to provide physically and skillfully to set him up for his one-timers from his office. So Washington needs to step up their game a little bit if they want to keep going. Obviously Washington's kind of surprisingly ended up missing the playoffs this past season, if I'm correct, right? I think they missed the playoffs.
Yes.
Okay. Because I was actually expecting them to get into the first round and lose or something like that, but they didn't even make it to the playoffs. So Ovechkin took his quick trip back to Russia until next season. So we'll see what happens. But I do expect things just like them and Pittsburgh to slow down in the upcoming seasons due to the veterans, getting older and teams being split up because they've all had their cups recently. So what about you, Eric?
It's worth noting that Pittsburgh also missed out on the playoffs this past year. They missed out to Florida by, 1 point. So Crosby got to sit home on the couch and eat popcorn and probably cry a little bit because we all know that's what Crosby's known for. The problem with Pittsburgh is that they're an old team. You look at this team, and of their top 10 goal scorers last year, top 10 in points, only 2 of them are under the age of 30. One of them is 29, and that's Rickard Rakell. So, I mean, this is a team that this is probably their last year. 23-24 is probably their last year to really have a shot. This past season was a disappointment for Pittsburgh. I mean, Malkin and Crosby were both healthy. The rest of the team just wasn't producing. So it was a big disappointment for Pittsburgh. I was expecting a first-round appearance in the playoffs, probably losing like you thought with Washington. Speaking of Washington, you basically mentioned everything I'd say. I'm really hoping Ovechkin can break the record. That'd be great. I'm a fan of Ovechkin over Crosby for sure. So, thing is, he's 37. He doesn't have the physicality that he had in the past. When Tom Wilson got back, the team did kind of improve ever so slightly. But the problem for Wilson was that his offensive accolades just were not there. So, the physicality was there, but the offense was not. So, this is a team, I think Washington has a little bit better chance than Pittsburgh does next year, but right now both teams were big disappointments, and that's what happens when you have young teams like the Devils and the Rangers take big steps forward, and Carolina even.
All right, thanks for that, Eric, on Pittsburgh and Washington. We are going to end this video here because I think, since we're at about the 15-minute mark, I think it's best if we split them up by divisions. So this is the Metro, like I said. Those are our thoughts of how this 2023 past season went. Don't forget to tune in to the next video, or the other video, should I say, of the other divisions, Atlantic, Pacific, and Central. We will have those upload around the same time as this one, which will be very soon. And then, of course, you can turn into the next video, which will be all the free agency moves, which will most likely be one whole video. So,
yes, hopefully.
Eric, thanks for joining me in this video. We'll end it here and continue moving forward. All right, thank you.